Ohio State made a statement today, leaving no doubt as they dismantled the Indiana Hoosiers.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your live postcast here after Ohio State's 38-15 win over the Indiana Hoosiers right here on Locked On Buckeyes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast, and this postcast is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Simply visit FanDuel.com to get started. During this postcast, we'll unveil and discuss our players of the game and why today was a big day for the Buckeye defense. But before we get to any of that, Ryan Day made a comment post-game, and it was his message all week long that the Buckeyes needed to leave no doubt during this game today. That's exactly what they did. They just dismantled the Indiana Hoosiers in a way that I didn't think they were going to be able to do. Now, the final score is going to be 38-15. 2 touchdowns by the Hoosiers, one their first drive, one in the latter part of the fourth quarter. And so you know that there was some scoring that Indiana could do. But between that first drive and the last scoring drive the Hoosiers had, the Buckeyes did a lot of good things defensively. We heard all week the back shoulder throws is Curtis Rourke's sweet spot. Couldn't really get those going. The rushing game, Hoosiers had a little bit of success there, probably more success than many of us thought they were going to. But at the end of the day, they were still held under 100 rushing yards. We knew in this game, Ohio State absolutely needed to win the rushing battle. Now, the Buckeyes didn't have the greatest day on the ground. Now, the Hoosiers' rush defense is one of the best in the country, but Ohio State still eclipsed the normal per-game average that the Hoosiers' rush defense has. The Buckeyes ran for 115 yards during this game, 4 yards a pop. Will Howard is a gamer. Curtis Rourke struggled in a way that he hadn't struggled all year, only threw for 68 passing yards. And in a top-5 matchup, you want to show everybody that there is no doubt that you are the better team. You are clearly not just more talented, you have the better scheme, and you are doing things in such a big way that the other team can't have any comeback for what you're doing. We got that today from Ohio State. One thing that I have been wondering about Ohio State for this game was if they were going to win the battle in the trenches. And I know I've said they had the guys to do it, but sometimes having the guys to do it doesn't mean you're going to get it done. But Ohio State offensively, on the offensive line with Hinsman back at center and Austin Serveld back at the starting left guard spot, what we saw today was Ohio State had the guys on both sides of the ball to get the job done, to dismantle the Hoosiers. You had the Buckeyes offensive line rushing the ball, gaining a lot of confidence early in this game, and that sustained them throughout the rest of the game as far as the O-line confidence. Passing the ball, Will Howard completed the first 14 passes of his career during this game. Got a lot of things right. Also, defensively, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but they got a lot of pressure on Curtis Rourke, and that was one of our keys to the game. The Buckeyes want to win this game. They must get pressure on Curtis Rourke, and they did that today. We knew Ohio State had the guys to do the things that they did today, but it's a whole lot more fun and enjoyable to actually see them doing what we believe they can do. And going forward for Ohio State, piggybacking off of this game, next week's the Michigan game. I'm not even going to try to bury it and wait till the end of the show to talk about it. Next week's the Michigan game. Let's say Ohio State won this game and they did not play like they did today. There's still lots of areas for Ohio State to pick up and to improve on. Don't get me wrong. This was not a game where Ohio State dominated and they were perfect. This wasn't a perfect game from Ohio State. The ball bounced their way. There were a couple forced fumbles. Lathan Ransom came in like a missile, and homie smacked that ball right there. I'm like, do you practice? You got to practice punching the ball like that, because he came in and it was like that was somebody's face and he was in a fight, and all he had to do was hit that guy's face, and Lathan Ransom hit him square in that dude's jaw, but the jaw was a ball. Ball popped out. There's so many good things about this game, man. I'm not here to nitpick, more celebrate that Ohio State won their second top 5 matchup of the season. All the questions about Ryan Day, all the questions about Ohio State, are they tough? Are their defense going to be able to stand up and fix and handle Curtis Rourke's back shoulder throws. Offensively, with the new look on the offensive line, is that going to be a strength for Ohio State during this game, or is that going to be a major negative, a major moment of concern for the Ohio State in this game? Whatever it is, we are all looking at Ohio State in this game and realizing in a top 5 matchup, if you hold the opposing quarterback to under 100 passing yards, hold the opposing team to under 100 rushing yards, hold the opposition to only 151 total yards, you're probably going to win the game. And so Ohio State knew, all the people talking this week, Hoosiers are a great story. People are excited about what Indiana is doing. Ohio State, can they win the third top 5 matchup in the season? It's a very tough road they got. But from here on out, basically from the Oregon game, Oregon loss on, you lose a game, you're not going to be able to accomplish one of your goals. They had a lot on their plate. So people can say the Hoosiers had nothing to lose and the Hoosiers could have just do whatever. And if they lose this game, they're still in a good spot. If Ohio State lost this game, there's a lot of negative conversations about this. So we heard a lot about Indiana this week. We also heard a lot about Ohio State. And one thing I don't think is really been talked enough about with this team is that if they lose a game after that Oregon loss, you're probably not going to the Big Ten Championship. That's outside of your control. Also, if you lose this game, it's not only a loss to a top 5 team, but it's to Indiana. Yes, my mom's an IU grad, so I look at them in a different light. But it's still to Indiana. One of those teams you don't lose to. And so there's a lot of pressure at times, but Ohio State tackled said pressure in a way that showed that their mindset is different right now, more of a championship mindset. Now, later in the game, Trevion Henderson on that last drive ended up scoring. The Buckeyes ended up scoring on a QB sneak with Will Howard. But I'm thinking, man, just run the ball in, man. But clock management. That was more of a clock management thing instead of running up the score and padding your own stats. I completely understand why he did that. Sometimes you're not going to do that. Sometimes you will. I understand in that moment he's thinking bigger picture. But bigger picture for this team, defensively, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Don't even look at the name on the symbol on the Hoosiers jersey on their logo. Don't even look at that. That's a good football team that Ohio State just handled. Ohio State just took down, and Ohio State said, we don't care what you're trying to do. We don't care what you're going to do right here, what your plans are right here. We're going to make sure you have no life at the end of the day in this game. We're going to make sure that offensively, Will Howard is playing so well that the defense in the secondary that has been so opportunistic, it's not going to be able to happen in this game. Rushing the ball, yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. The Hoosiers' rush defense, really, really good. Even better at times in this game than I expected. But Ohio State still found ways to pop open and open up some holes. Did those things very well. Offensively, great. Defensively, that's more where my mindset is right now, because today was a big day for the Buckeye defense, from Cody Simon and Sonny Styles to J.T. Tuimoloau, even Igmanosin. I don't want to say that name incorrectly, even though I get frustrated with thinking about some things that happened today for him during this game. I say all that to say this. We're diving into the big performance from the Buckeye defense next. This episode is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times their cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Prize Picks now offers Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this sports season. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Once again, go to prizepicks.com and download the app today on your phone and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Thank you all for tapping into this live postcast after Ohio State's 38-15 dismantling win over the Indiana Hoosiers. We kind of ramped up coverage this week leading into the game, had a couple Buckeye blitzes, which are the shorter shows in your feeds on a Wednesday afternoon and on a Friday afternoon. And one thing we talked about with this game was that Ohio State had to win the battle in the trenches. Now, sometimes when you think about battle in the trenches, you think about the rushing of your team and what the running backs and the offensive line will do. But also that goes to what Ohio State defensively could do. Because defensively in this game, the Buckeyes defense showed up and showed out all game long. One thing we knew, another key to the game in this game, was that Ohio State had to get pressure on Curtis Wark. Any good quarterback who is in a rhythm from game after game after game, one thing you have to do is get into his face. Pressure up the middle, pressure from his backside, pressure from his front side, pressure from all around. Make sure you get pressure on the quarterback. And Ohio State early and often got pressure on Curtis Wark. One guy that was able to get a lot of pressure on Wark was Cody Simon. He had 2.5 tackles for loss. Jack Sawyer had 1.5 sacks. Caden Curry had a sack. Sonny Styles had a sack. Tuimoloau had a sack. I mean, you get the gist. They was having meetings at the quarterback, and everybody named Mama got the memo. Buckeyes had 5 sacks today. They also added in 1 quarterback hit, and Curtis Wark couldn't really get anything going. Couldn't get into his spots. Couldn't get into a rhythm. Curtis Wark really, really struggled, which goes to show not only why he only had 68 passing yards, but a lot of it was because the Buckeyes secondary was just locking guys down. He was 8 for 18, a 44 completion percentage in this game. Elijah Surratt, only 3 catches. Omar Cooper Jr. didn't have a catch at all. Keyshawn Williams had 2 catches. Tyson Lawton, a really good running back, had 2. And then Miles Price had 1. That was it. 8 catches, 18 targets, 18 throws. That's all, man. I mean, that's championship level stuff. For Ohio State to only give up 4 touchdowns since the Oregon loss, you're doing a lot of things right. And in a top 5 matchup, when the home crowd was behind you, and I'm going to just sit here and praise anybody that may be in their car driving home, or maybe you're catching this in a post playback format. Anybody that was at that game, thank you. Thank you for being loud. Thank you for doing the things that were needed to help Ohio State's defense during this game. Because Ohio State fans get a lot of negative conversations thrown around them because of, well, the shoe wasn't really that loud. And sometimes it's kind of the wine and cheese crowd. Those are some of the things that are said about Ohio State fans. Well, today in the shoe, it was rocking. The only thing I would say is that I kind of hope not CBS. I would CBS broadcast the game, or NBC. I would say NBC couldn't tonight because they're broadcasting a late primetime game. USC, UCLA, that rivalry there. This is more of a CBS broadcast. I like Joe Klatt. I like Gus Johnson. But y'all broadcast ain't better than CBS's or NBC's or even ESPN's or ABC's. Like, if I'm trying to put the hierarchy of like big game broadcasts, Fox is at the bottom. Where's Ohio State played a lot of their games this year? On Fox. So that's a big reason why the crowd is kind of looked at as kind of being a snooze fest, because the broadcast itself makes the Buckeyes crowd seem like a snooze fest. So take that for what it's worth. The crowd did their thing today. But also, there were numerous players, man, that we could highlight. And I'll highlight one in a little bit that was kind of a downer. Still a big day for the defense type of conversation, but kind of a negative thing there for him. Who do I start with? Cody Simon, 10 tackles, led the team in tackles today. 2.5 sacks. 4 of his tackles were solo. Also had a forced fumble. Let me just tell you, there were some times I'm watching this game and I'm thinking, okay, I see the blitz. I see where the block-o is. I see where number 6 is. I see where 44 is. Those are the 3 guys on any play that's you in this obvious passing situation. I'm looking for 44, the block-o, and number 6. And a lot of these times, 2 of them were in the backfield at the same time. Sometimes they were not. But one thing about Cody Simon, it was a sack he had, I believe, coming off the right edge. Homie came up around the edge like a missile and zoom right into the backfield, quarterback sack. And he was just locked in. Remember, earlier this year, we talked about how the linebackers were the weakest link on the Buckeyes defense. Right now, it's one of their strengths. Right there with, linebackers and safeties. The linebackers aren't as good as the safeties because Ransom and Downs are 2 of the best in the country. But I can understand why the linebackers might be second right now, because those guys are great. Sonny Styles still has some of those DB traits, which I don't think he was going to lose when he moved to linebacker. But, man, his ability to cover in the flat and to really read and react and decipher what's going on in the backfield, that's huge, man. Very similar to what Howard's performance. Going to talk more about that later on. But Cody Simon has just been so much fun to watch. But Sonny Styles, there was a play, I don't know if it was second and short or third and short, to the flat toward the top side of your screen if you're watching the game on the TV. And he was there. Now, Work was kind of rushed to throw a bad pass. Even if it was a good pass and it was a completed pass, it would have been no gain because Sonny Styles was right there like white on rice. He was not going anywhere. And so Ohio State's team right now defensively, also adding in that they're getting more pressure on the quarterback. There were times in this game defensively, I'm sitting here frustrated and kind of concerned about the lack of ability to get pressure with your front four. It didn't matter if it was the starters or some of the backups were mixed in. They can't get pressure with just four. Now, I do think Tuamaloba, I think there was a sack on a rush with just four. That can happen. I'm not saying it can't happen. That can happen. There was also, I believe, a spy on that play. But most of the time, if it's just four, you can't do it. You're also struggling to kind of set the tone on the defensive line. Because the Hoosiers were getting penetration and Hoosiers were able to make open holes. Tyson, if it were just a game on the ground, I mean, Tyson Lawton today kind of showed everybody he can play in the big. He's a Big Ten running back. Tyson Lawton, 15 carries, 79 yards, 5.3 yards a pop. Justice Ellison, 17 for 62 and 3.6 yards a pop. If you're going to go into this game and say that the Hoosiers are going to have those type of rushing performances, you're probably going to think that they're going to have a good shot to win. You're probably thinking that. But when your secondary is allowing nothing, turn it to the no-fly zone for at a couple of times, that's going to make it very, very, very difficult for anything to get going. Now, on the flip side, as I talk about sometimes the issues on the defensive line, Ohio State cannot afford to have Davis and Igbenogson continue to pick up pass interference penalties. Picked up 2 in the Hoosiers' first drive, picked up another in the fourth quarter. 3 PIs in one game is unacceptable. I'm not here to sugarcoat it, and I don't care if I'm hurting anybody's feelings. 3 pass interference calls is unacceptable. And the fact that he is still picking these up game after game after game, and early in that game, on the first one that I don't think was a pass interference call, all of a sudden they throw a flag. Homie, you got to change how you're playing because they're showing you that they're going to call this game tight. But no, didn't change. Did it again on that drive. Hoosiers ended up scoring. And then in the fourth quarter, they pulled Matthews Jr. in a little bit. They put Igbenogson back in. They kind of tried to do some things differently. He got another pass interference call. Those are the types of things that can cost you games in the Big Ten championship and in the playoff as well. I don't think Michigan is a team that has an offense good enough that'll capitalize on those moments, nor do I think they have a quarterback that good at all. So I don't like Ohio State should win next week. They should roll Michigan. Just being, blow them out. Like if Henderson next week has that long run late in the fourth quarter and he ends up sliding on the 2-yard line to kind of conserve time, I think everybody and their mama right now watching this show as an Ohio State fan is going to say, "Sir, what are you doing? Run that thing up. Run it up. It's the Wolverines. Run that thing up." Today you don't do that. So I like IGB at times. The times I don't like him on the field, at least, not as a person that's on the field, is today. 3 PIs in one game. You already led the country in PIs in the FBS level, and you did it once again today? Y'all, that's unacceptable. Now, I've been saying it for a while that occasionally I think that Hancock may need to be moved outside and come Lorenzo Styles or Sonny Styles to nickel, which I think Sonny is too good at linebacker to move him out to nickel. He's also calling the plays and being the ringleader on the defense right now, which is great. Igbenogson, Warrant scares me, man. What we got from Igbenogson right now, he could be good. He can make good plays. It's hard to say anything good about you getting 3 PI calls in one game. There are 2 players that I've hinted at already that are classified as players of the game for Ohio State's 38-15 win over the Indiana Hoosiers. We'll dive into those 2 players next. This episode is brought to you by ZBiotics Pre Alcohol. ZBiotics Pre Alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Go to ZBiotics.com/LockedOnCollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is back with 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to ZBiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use the code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Guys, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you all everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, and it's all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. And some of you might want to put that first $5 bet on Ohio State minus 23.5 against the Michigan Wolverines next weekend. All the action goes down in two places on the FanDuel Sportsbook app and at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you all for tapping into Locked On Buckeyes. This postcast after Ohio State's 38-15 win over the then number 5 team in the land, the Indiana Hoosiers. I say then because come Tuesday, they might not be in the top 10. Brand bias is going to hurt them in this type of a matchup because they didn't look good today. I ain't going to sugarcoat it. They didn't look good at all. And one reason why they didn't look good is because Ohio State has some guys on offense and on defense, 2 guys specifically that got the job done. Our offensive player of the game for Ohio State's 38-15 win over the Indiana Hoosiers is my guy, Will Howard. 22 of 26, completed his first 14 passes today, 201 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. He also added in 5 carries. He had 1 touchdown. That was on the final drive of the game. Will Howard got it done today. And he is a guy that I'm still kind of thinking he's not the greatest passer in the world. He has some issues throwing the ball. Arm isn't the strongest. But let me tell you, man, Will Howard was just wheeling and dealing, and he was dialed in today. No matter if it was Abuka or Cardell Tate or Jeremiah Smith or anybody else, it just seemed like Will Howard was going to sling that thing and zing it there and zing it there because he understood take what the defense is giving you. He don't have to throw the ball deep every play or even at all in the game. All he has to do is take what the defense is giving him. If Jeremiah Smith is locked up but Abuka's open, throw it there. If Cardell Tate's open, throw it there. If Jelani Thurman lets you down earlier in the game, but he's open later in the game, throw it to him. And that's what he did. All game long, Will Howard is just like, hey, all I got to do is just kind of make this game simple. Simplify the game. And a way for him to simplify the game was, 1, help the offensive line get into a rhythm and get into a groove, and that's exactly what happened. But number 2, take what the defense is giving him because the Hoosiers' defense is good. Like, I don't think anybody can lead this and say, well, IU lost. They couldn't get anything going offensively or defensively, and, well, they have some issues here. Defensively, the Hoosiers have some good players. I mean, CJ West, number 8, Carpenter, number 99. Didn't really hear Michael Kamara's name at all. Just give credit to the Buckeyes offensive line and Will Howard for making sure that he was not a factor. The Hoosiers defense is good. Has some good players all at every single level. Will Howard said, I respect y'all. I know what y'all are all about. I understand y'all are the Cinderella story in college football, doing things in your program y'all have never done. Let me tell y'all about Ohio State. This is different. Y'all are in the shoe. Y'all are playing in front of 100,000 plus strong. Y'all are playing at big noon against the world famous Ohio State Buckeyes. So I know what y'all been doing all season long, but y'all really ain't played nobody. And we showed y'all today that when y'all play in the shoe against us, this is a different level of ball. This is a different brand of ball. And the Hoosiers weren't ready for it today. And I understand, I'm not here to knock it. They weren't ready for it. They were ready early. But over a 4-quarter battle, like I told my dad on Friday evening. I'm talking to my dad on Friday evening after covering a girls' basketball game here in the area. And one thing I told my dad was, I think IU can hang with not hang around. Let's put it that way. Hang around for about 2 quarters, 3.5 quarters. But after that, it's over. I think it was over before that point in time. Ohio State once again won that middle 8, outscored their opponent once again in the 3rd quarter. But the Hoosiers had some good stuff. But Ohio State said early, defensively and offensively, Will Howard was so locked in, the Hoosiers couldn't do anything. And the defense was so locked in, the Hoosiers couldn't do anything. And it was a big reason why Cody Simon already went over his numbers earlier in the show. Is it Locked On Buckeyes defensive player of the game for his performance today? 10 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble. He also had those were also his 2.5 tackles for loss, were his sacks. He is once again a man on a mission. This is one of those games, honestly, I could have gone Cody defensive player of the game with Cody Simon and Sonny Styles. They're playing that good, man. They're playing that well. But Cody Simon's leadership is one thing that I think was very apparent today. Also, I forgot about something. I got to talk about it later in the show. I should have mentioned it in the first segment, but Cody Simon's fun to watch. So much fun to watch. He kind of does a good job of just controlling things. And even if a team starts to establish the run, he's right there in the mix. Oh, you got a 6-yard gain here? Let's make that 3 the next time. Let's make that 2 the next time. And all of a sudden, you're starting to not have your confidence rise. Your confidence is falling because of Cody Simon's presence. His ability to be so quick to read and react is amazing. His instincts are amazing. His ability to be a coach on the field is seen every single down, every single day. I can't get enough of it. The sacks, the pressure. Jim Knowles realized first quarter, now we're not really going to call many blitzes and try to get extra type of pressure. All of a sudden when we do, it's night. Game over. Why? Cody Simon's in the backfield over and over and over and over again. And he's continuing to do a lot of his damage in the flat and in the backfield, really inside the box. Teams can't handle that. They can't handle it at all. I think one of the biggest things for him lately is his sideline speed that has gotten better and better and better as he has a better grasp on Jim Knowles' defense. That was apparent today once again. Now, something I didn't say is it's something I don't normally do is have a special teams player of the game. But if we had one, I think it's very clear and very easy who it would be. It's Caleb Downs. He returned the first Buckeye punt return since 2014 during this game. You guys could probably guess who it was that returned that punt in 2014, Jalen Marshall. Jalen Marshall, a very athletic, a very good returner. He had his ups. I say very good kind of loosely. He definitely had his ups, and he also made some of us think we were going to have a mental breakdown sometimes he was returning the ball. But the last one was Jalen Marshall in the 2014 season. Caleb Downs today, I want to see him return the ball more. 3 punt returns, 91 yards, a long of 79. That was his touchdown return today, and we heard it. I think he only returned 4 punts at Alabama last year as a freshman. One of them was a touchdown. Today, spin move, makes a lot of safe decisions. Once he finds that crease, he's gone. I want to add a little bit of extra because I believe it was David Adolph on a block more on the near the numbers, and then it was Caden McDonald, a block by the hash as Caleb Downs started to come back around from the right sideline over to the left front corner of the end zone. One thing that both of those guys did, which I really hope that Igbenogson learns, is a technique to not get a penalty. David Adolph, over there by the numbers, he had his hands up, but his back was to the defender. So he's running hands up. You cannot call him for a penalty if that's the case. Same thing. Caden Curry, more at the hash. He came up, and it could have easily been using hands, illegal block in the back. It could have been a penalty that overturned a touchdown, But no, hands up back to the – so there's a technique that these guys are using. I've seen it all year, but it was great on this play that prevented a penalty in a big time of the game, which is huge. Very, very huge. Offensive, Will Howard. Defensive, Cody Simon. Special teams, Caleb Downs. What are your thoughts, man? What are your final thoughts about this game? Leave it on the live chat. If you're catching this on the on-demand portion, leave it on the YouTube comment section on this video, because I'm curious what your thoughts are about anybody that's a player of the game. Maybe you pick somebody different than me. Could have been Carnell Tate. He was good. Mecca Buka had that touchdown. I mean, there was a lot of good things that happened today. Let me know who would have been. Defensively, would you have given it to Tui Maloau or Sonny Styles? Let me know. You may say it may not have been that Caleb Downs was your special teams player of the game. We would have to agree or disagree on that one, because I think there's no way you can say anybody but number 2 on defense is the special teams player of the game for what he did today, returning those punts. Thank y'all for tapping into this live postcast during your college football Saturday. For your second listen on this college football Saturday, check out the Locked On Big Ten podcast, because Craig Sheeman is the guy that puts the Big Ten first when everyone else overlooks it. Find Locked On Big Ten and Locked On Buckeyes on the YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. The Buckeyes are 10-1. And you know what time it is? It's time for war. Because next week, the Buckeyes have a big-time matchup against those pesky Michigan Wolverines. Go Bucks!